Welcome to Observations, an open conversation about women's health. This is a space where physicians, patients, and other experts can sit down and have honest, evidence-based dialogue that cuts through the media bias and brings clarity back to maternal care and how we can care for both patients, mother and preborn child. With each episode, we will have real stories, real science, but also real questions about women's health today. From clinical insights to lived experiences, to aligned perspectives, and yes, also respectful disagreements. This is our goal, to bridge the gap between physician and patient, to empower informed decision-making, and bring back and elevate compassionate, fact-driven care. Now, a quick note before we dive in. Not every guest on the podcast is going to represent the views or positions of AppLog, but we believe that having open and honest conversations are going to make us better. So, grab your coffee, settle in, and let's get into today's observation.
I'm your host today, Dr. Susan Bain, and today we're excited to have an incredible, I'm going to call him a giant in the field of OB-GYN, though he is much more humble than what his CV says. We're happy to have Dr. John Thorp, a fellow North Carolinian and a faculty member at UNC Chapel Hill. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Dr. Thorp. So Dr. Thorp is a native of North Carolina. He began his OB-GYN residency at UNC Chapel Hill in 1983, and he has not left. He is a Tar Heel, I guess, blue and blue, through and through. His clinical focus is on preterm birth, perinatal substance abuse, and office gynecology. He has very humbly, as he states, contributed to research innovations included limited use of episiotomy, progesterone to prevent recurrent preterm birth, magnesium for neuroprotection, and timing of labor induction. And he's very proud to say he recently completed the certificate program at Duke Divinity School in Theology, Medicine, and Culture, which I also did, probably because he encouraged me to do it. Dr. Thorpe, thank you for joining AppLog on the podcast today.
I'm honored to be here.
And we're honored that you're a member and that when I think about practicing in North Carolina for 28 plus years and how I was trained compared to practicing now and the list of research areas you've been involved in, a lot of the things many of us do, not only in North Carolina, but across this country and globally, are because of research you led. And so I like how you said, I have contributed to research, but I want our audience to know you all are talking to the guy. You're talking to a man in our field who has helped us know so many things that we do every day. So this is not a time to be humble, Dr. Thorpe. So first of all, let's talk about why'd you choose OB when you were in med school at Chapel Hill or residency? You didn't go to.
I went to medical school in Greenville.
That's right. You're a fellow pirate with me. That's right.
I am a fellow pirate. I was in the third four-year class at East Carolina.
Okay. So you're
best things I ever did.
Yeah. So you're purple and gold as well as the Carolina blue and
well, to some extent.
All right. So let's talk about when you were going to med school. Did you know you wanted to go into obstetrics and gynecology?
So I'll have to give you the real answer, and it goes back 2 generations. My grandfather's brother, my great uncle Adam, was a general practitioner in Rocky Mount, which is a small town on 95 south of Washington, D.C. And he very much liked doing obstetrics. The Chicago School of Obstetrics was predominant. It was trying to medicalize childbirth. So people went to sleep with ether when they got completely dilated, bag and mask ether. Their babies were born with forceps operations. Mothers didn't like anything about it. and it was dangerous because people would aspirate and die. He had a patient die. It upset him quite a bit. He went somewhere in the north, Philadelphia or Baltimore. I'm not quite sure where. In anything north of the Rappahannock River in Fredericksburg is a black box to a boy from Rocky Mount. Um, but but he went and learned how to do caudal anesthesia for it's a single shot epidural for the second stage of labor. He came back to Rocky Mount, started a birth center next door to the hospital. He was the only person in the South that did caudal anesthesia, and people would get on the train in Washington, Richmond, Jacksonville, Florida in the latent phase of labor and come to Rocky Mount so they could be awake while they had their babies and not aspirate. He was a terrible businessman, but he was yeah, he trained he couldn't get people to come to practice in Rocky Mount with him. So he took they were all women from the little nursing school at Parkview Hospital, and he turned them into caudal nurses.
Mm.
His son and my dad were first cousins. They were born a month apart. His son was named Jim. Jim went to medical school at Carolina. He, I think, was in one of the first few 4-year classes at Carolina. Well, like I said, his dad was not a good businessman. So Jim joined the Navy to to pay for his medical education and practiced in the Navy up until he was going to get sent somewhere he didn't want to go. And he tried to come back to Rocky Mount. His dad had died. The practice that his dad had started would not hire him. So my father talked him into starting a solo practice. So I can remember as a 10-year-old boy moving exam tables into this OB-GYN office for I called him an uncle. He really isn't. I was probably 40 before I understood that. And Jim's wife died of lymphoma, and he and my dad talked for an hour every night of my life. That they were very, very close friends. So I'd sort of watched this family dynamic. It it wasn't strange to me. Also, UNC residents came to Rocky Mount. They did a GYN rotation. I was an operating room orderly. They were willing to let me ask them a question or talk to them.
Hmm.
Where all these friends of my family wouldn't speak to me because I was an orderly because they didn't talk to her. So I was pretty much inclined in that direction
Yeah.
from the very start.
So that story is so rich. And for those of us who kind of look back at our field and don't know the history of our field as well, um, I thought it was really interesting how you talked about the medicalization of childbirth. What do you think is the reason we felt there was a need for that to happen?
I think it was part of an American belief in modernity and progress, and that there was tremendous medical progress at that time with the discovery of antibiotics, the discovery of anesthesia. Is childbirth a disease, or is it a healthy function that can go awry? Is a huge philosophical question. If you treat diseases, then you medicalize.
Hmm.
I'm not sure it's what women wanted, consumers wanted, but it happened. The episiotomy was a big part of the package.
Yeah, it sure was.
And many of your listeners will be too young to know that in the 1980s, 95+% of first time births were preceded by episiotomy, and 60-70% of subsequent births. It was part of the medicalized package. And in the first paper that I wrote, I did this trial. it wasn't ethical. I didn't have IRB approval. I didn't know I needed IRB approval. I didn't purposefully be unethical, but but it's, it's the way things work. And we proved that episiotomy not only did not protect the rectum against injury, that was the argument. By making a surgical incision, you're going to prevent a severe laceration. Severe laceration involved rectal injury. And we showed that midline episiotomy actually increases the risk of rectal injury. So that part of the package did exactly what the exact opposite of what it promised. Maintenance of certification exam questions that now condemn it. Because my findings were not met with favor, I can tell. Evidence-based medicine has a hell of a lot of limitations. And almost every big decision that we make in medicine or in life does not have an evidence-based, randomized control
Right.
trial evidence
Yeah.
to tell us what to do. I signed a contract yesterday for some remodeling in our house. It's a big decision. I talked to a financial advisor, I talked to realtors, I talked to a contractor, but I can't randomly assign 10 houses like mine and do 5 and not do 5 and see
Right.
what happens to the value 5 years from now. So most decisions are made free of the technical definition of evidence. I don't, okay, I've got grade A evidence. I've got randomized controlled trials that tell me what to do or not do. And I think it's one of the reasons why pregnancy termination or abortion is so controversial, because you can't randomly assign the exposure ethic. You can't randomly assign
Right.
anything that matters to anybody. So there's no RCT data around abortion where there is a control group. So you have to compare and try to control for
Well,
the
and when
things that
you reference,
randomization
the
takes care of.
population research, epidemiology research, that's got value. But when we're in front of one patient at a time, and we have to take the best available literature as well as our clinical expertise, as well as the person in front of us, because we're not coming in there with her lived experiences and her knowledge of her own body. We're journeying together. Um, that evidence matters, but it is not the only thing on the table. And when you think about some of the other big findings that you've been part of that have changed practice management, one that I often think about is, when do we do inductions that would be considered elective, particularly the timing of that labor induction? And talk to our audience a little bit about the research that showed us we really shouldn't be doing that as early as it was being done at times in our profession.
Well, the timing is just from a big cohort study that was done in the maternal fetal units network registry for repeat cesarean section. Mark Landon at Ohio State was the lead investigator, and Alan Tita at the University of Alabama, compare different windows of elective repeat cesarean section and baby outcome, and it's a U-shaped. If you have, I always get the X and the Y axis confused, but on the vertical axis, if you have neonatal morbidity, it's a U-shaped thing that makes 39 weeks the optimal framework. Unfortunately, people have, to my mind, unfortunately, it's become a quality indicator, and to now say I think this baby needs to come sooner than the 39th week takes an act of Congress, at least in my health system, because it violates leapfrog or some sort of quality indicator that that they think is important. We also took that evidence with the Arrive induction of labor trial, and this was Dr. Grobman. He was at Northwestern at that time. He's at Brown University now, and it actually was an experiment, and actually people allowed random assignment, and it was first time moms that supposedly the hardest people to induce. And we induced people in the 39th week versus waiting until 41 weeks, which is the quote standard of care. And the moms induced in the 39th week had a lower cesarean section rate, 15% versus 20%. There were over 6,000 women randomized. So a heck of a big study. The babies in the induction arm tended to do better. It almost reached statistical significance. If you do the Rocky Mount thing and just look at the list of the two arms, somebody from Rocky Mount would say the babies did better in the induction arm, and that sort of has irritated a lot of people because induction is considered to be a bad thing. But this is an evidence-based intervention that actually reduces the risk of cesarean section.
Yeah,
You would
yeah.
think the midwives would like
Yeah,
that.
as I think about it and wonder the practical application of that is versus waiting until, she doesn't naturally go into labor. Do you think or did the trial suggest that it was more related to the babies at 41 weeks were bigger? What were the reasons why the outcomes seemed to be better with a 39-week induction? Okay.
They had fewer hypoxic events. So in theory, a younger and more functional placenta. And then fewer birth injuries, which were associated with weight.
We could do an
You know,
entire podcast just on that
yeah.
topic, couldn't we?
Well, it shows how evidence can take us into directions we didn't. I thought inductions were bad, and I wanted to avoid inductions, and medicalization is not good, but that might be a place where
Yeah.
medicalization is
So I want to shift gears a little
helpful.
bit because you have been in the field practicing for several years and you have been in an academic environment. So you have been a mentor not only to medical students, but also to residents. And one of the things I failed to mention in your introduction is you're actually a maternal fetal medicine fellowship trained OB-GYN. And so have mentored fellows too. So what's the value of mentorship to you? I know you have a heart for future generations, and so does APLOG. So where does that come from?
Well, I guess because I was the beneficiary of mentorship by people older and wiser than me. I don't think you can formally make it happen. Or I think it's best when it arises de novo and organically, as opposed to. And I know you're a professional coach, so you
No,
probably
not
believe
necessarily.
differently. But I'm not sure the forced relationships are as good as the ones that that spring to life from shared interests, shared passions. So it can be hard to find mentors, and but I'm grateful for the ones that I've had, and I'm grateful for the privilege of being allowed to be
So
one
let's talk about a few
in
of the
young
ways
people's
that you
lives.
mentor. So one of them is actually you mentor undergraduate freshman students at UNC Chapel Hill. There is a course all freshmen take called Ideas and Action Curriculum at UNC, and there are a variety of sections that students can sign up for. And you actually teach one called The Way of Medicine. So tell us a little bit about your course and your section.
So I've done it now for 2 or 3 years. Maybe this past spring was the 5th section, and there are 25 to 30 students. We study 2 textbooks. The first book is Farquharson and Tollefson's Way of Medicine, which is neo-Aristotelian virtue ethics in medicine, that health has an objective good that is knowable, and the goal of medicine is to promote health. And things that don't promote health should not be part of medicine. And it contrasts it to the utilitarian consumerist world we live in now, which they label the provider of services model. We also read a satire called Man's Fourth Best Hospital. It's written, the guy's pen name is Samuel Shem. He wrote the satire House of God in the late 1970s that really revolutionized residency education. Is a dark and misogynistic book, but so that's the trigger warning. But it's also funny as it can be, particularly if you've ever been a resident. Um, and Man's Fourth Best Hospital skewers the provider of service model, electronic health records, health grades, all the things. And Man's Fourth Best Hospital is a play against Massachusetts General Hospital and Man's Greatest Hospital. And so Perlin and Tollefson's book is a sort of philosophy for amateurs, for philosophy for non-philosophers book. And Shim's book is really funny, and
Yeah. So
the
our
combination
audience will
seems to
likely
work.
know The Way of Medicine. That was the theme of our National MBEC conference, not this year in 2026, but in 2025. Both Dr. Glennon and Dr. Sen were guest speakers at the conference. So as you build on that, I'm thinking of college freshmen. So are many of them thinking they want to go into healthcare or pre-med? What is their take after a semester?
So Dr. Curlin is at Duke, and is uh, um, an accidental Dookie. He's
Is he
really a
went
Tar
to
Heel.
school there, right? He did his
And
undergrad
he'll
or med, right?
undergraduate in medical school. So he likes Carolina much. So he comes every year to the class. So the kids, I call them kids, they're young adults. It's not pejorative. Are largely pre-med. Maybe 1 out of 3 to half of students who come to UNC are some pre-health professional track. So there are a hell of a lot of them. UNC is a public school. Out-of-state admissions are capped. A lot of young people who come to UNC are the first people in their families to go to college. They don't really know what they want to do. It's a lovely group. I remember this was last semester. A young man had gone to sort of Christian school in a small town called Apex near here. And after 2 or 3 classes, he raised his hand and he said, "Are you trying to tell me that this dude Curlin thinks this ancient dude Aristotle has something to say about the practice of medicine today?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you just nailed it." That's the thesis. They're really sweet kids, and Clark Erlin has come to each section for one evening, and I think it's a unique experience. I haven't had it before to read and study and discuss a book, and then get to meet the author, and he says, "Ask me anything you
Yeah.
want to ask me."
So
So
what is your main That's
that's
exactly
what I think
right.
a
So what do
university's
you
supposed to
think,
do.
what do you hope the students, as you're mentoring them in this class, and what are you hoping they'd leave your semester with questions about how we should practice medicine, with knowledge about it? What's your goal?
Well, I don't. So I've had one young person. He's going to go get a statistics degree at Duke. And he's helped me with every class.
Uh-huh.
We call him the pseudo graduate student. But he's about. Okay, his name is George, and I'm like, George, how do I know whether they like it or not? And he's like, well, they know you don't take attendance, and they know you can't remember exactly who they are. And he said, so they know they don't have to come. So if they keep coming, then that's a really good sign. And we don't have 100% attendance, but they keep coming back. They like the discussions, and I think they ultimately like struggling with the concept of what is medicine for, what is its
Right.
end, what is its telos. I mean, my grandiose hope is to create a group of subversives that will tear apart the provider of services model, and there will be a renaissance in medicine. And Christianity started with 11 after the traitor hung himself. Maybe my maybe my 125 kids so far can start a revolution on a much smaller scale, and I can't breathe the Holy Spirit upon them. You know, I don't mean to compare, but I think a small group of people who are inspired somehow, who do see something beyond themselves,
Absolutely.
can have a
Absolutely. I
big
think at
impact.
Applog, that's one of our goals when we think about the purpose of medicine and the fact that we take care of two patients, a maternal fetal patient, mom and her baby. And, the direct and intentional killing of one of those patients, you know, it doesn't align with when you think of the purpose of medicine, of health and healing. And so when you say that revolutionizing renaissance of medicine, what do you think what would you love medicine to look like that it doesn't look like today?
So I would like medicine to be directed toward health, and things that don't improve health and well-being to not be done by physicians. I would like to take the business people and and the administrative people off the map. I I think they try to promote the business of my health system, not the health of the of the patients. I'd like to see doctors. I think it would. I think it gets old to be a barista at Starbucks.
Hmm.
What do you want? What do you want? I think we did shared decision making and came up with that. You want 3 frappuccinos. I think doctor's role is to say it's different, and he or she has authority to say 3 frappuccinos aren't so good for you, and maybe you need
Hmm.
black coffee
Hmm.
with some Splenda in it, and that medicine is a profession that has authority, that has a
Yeah,
conscience,
I
and I
think
think
one
that's
of the
what patients
interesting
want
things
to.
that, when I look at some of the guidelines about conscience as it comes out of the American College of OB-GYN, which is our largest women's health medical organization, it seems as if the Yes, the
and the
mother of
mother of
Apple, we were
Apollon.
birthed from that. Yes. It seems like the conscience of healthcare professionals doesn't matter. It's the conscience of the patient, which that is important, but that we're supposed to leave our conscience in the current provider service model uh, as at the door and just provide as I think we were both taught at in the Duke program, if it's legal, if it is technologically available and the patient wants it, then we have to provide that, regardless of what our conscience says.
Yeah, and I think there's more to medicine than consent and
Absolutely.
patient autonomy,
Hmm.
although
Hmm.
both are important and not to be discounted, but have their proper place. So yeah, I'm old. I don't think I'll live to see it happen. But these young people are young, and they have their lives and careers in front of them. I also want them to know what a wonderful thing it is to 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 be a physician and to have that role, not so that you can squash your patient's autonomy, but that you can advise, help, be involved in crucial things in their in other human beings' lives.
Yeah,
It's a lot of fun,
it is.
um, and a privilege and rewarding, and y- y- you know, my wife wants me to retire. I like it. I don't want to
Yeah,
quit. I'm
yeah.
I'm I'm happy.
So, a
Um,
couple other initiatives that
so
you
yeah.
have gotten yourself into these days is a medical humanities seminar between Duke and Chapel Hill, as well as restorative medicine and a conference you have coming up this summer, June 28th to July 1st. So, tell us a little bit about, first of all, the medical humanities seminar that you have. That's for undergraduates, also, right?
Yeah, it's for UNC and Duke, supposedly seniors, although we had a couple of underclassmen and people who are about to enter medical school. And it's offered by the Catholic Center at Duke Divinity School that's called Fons Vitae, the Fountain of Truth, the Fountain of Life. If it's Catholic, it needs to have a Latin name. And we we did the 2 books I previously described and other books. We met together, had meals, we went on a bus trip to Washington. It was a lot of, it was a lot of fun. These kids are more young adults. I don't mean anything pejorative by the use of the word, but these young people are a little further delineated in their
Yeah.
and where they're
Yeah.
going
Well, and
vocationally. And,
there you
a
go.
chance to teach Duke students. How often
Well, and
does that happen?
it reminds me. So at MBEC this year, I had the privilege of interviewing Dr. Robbie George, and he talked about faith and reason as it goes together with why the audience he was speaking with chooses to practice life affirming medicine and does not use death as a therapeutic modality. And when you think about this particular initiative you're involved with, you have these seniors at Duke and at Carolina who are also Catholic, and so that's their faith component. And it's neat to see this class, probably maybe more so than your other class, can bring both faith and reason into thinking through how we should practice medicine. Though I don't want to speak for your undergraduate freshman class, that may come in a lot too, but it seems like this one is particularly a Catholic initiative.
It's more heavily Catholic, though the pseudo graduate student who I'm not sure has ever been in a church of any variety or temple or mosque, like begged me to do it and enjoyed it and participated in every. I think so much of life is iterative, and you do the next right thing, and you see what happens, and it leads in
But one of the things Robbie
so
George talked
surprising
about
ways.
was that he used the analogy of pheasant hunting, and he was pheasant hunting one time, and his shot was off, and so the bird was going in circles, and it couldn't fly anymore. But he said, if we don't use faith and reason, a wing on each side, when we're thinking through this, we can't really fly. We have to have both. So the intersection of both of those, I imagine you get into some great discussions in your potential your classes with that.
Yeah, and I try to take in both classes things that arise in clinic that week, sort of ethical and moral issues and dilemmas, and what are you going to do with this? How are you going to answer that? What's the right thing for a clinician to do? So I don't think they understand what doctors do day in and day out, and how their ethical decisions every single day. There may be dramatic things about the moral status of an embryo or fetus, um, which is important, but there are also important things at a on a lesser, maybe less dramatic scale, but still where unlimited autonomy versus virtue ethics
Yeah, absolutely. So
into
as we wrap up, I
into
want
play.
the audience, to learn about the restorative medicine conference at Duke that you have the opportunity, they could potentially participate in this summer. So tell us about that program. It's June 28th to July 1st.
So, restorative reproductive medicine is a attempt to approach infertility and as a derivative family planning from neo-Aristotelian virtue ethics approach. We're optimizing health as opposed to doing technological things. And there's a whole discipline and field along those lines. We're going to talk about the theology and the philosophy of that approach in a seminar at Duke Divinity School, and it's going to be from Sunday, June 28th
And we can put in
to
our
July
show
the 1st.
notes the information about that, so that if anybody wants to sign up for that program, when's the deadline for applying, Dr. Thorpe?
I think it's the end of May, and I think that the people accepted will get
Okay.
their
Is there a
travel
registration cost?
expenses covered. No, I think they can do it for
Wow. So this is a really
for
great
not for
opportunity,
nothing.
whether you're
For
a medical student. Do you have to be a clinician out already practicing, or can you be in training?
You can be in train. I think anybody right now could apply for it. So a diocesan natural family planning teacher, a hospital chaplain, a nurse. We don't quite know what's gonna happen, and it's gonna be in the Duke Divinity School. I can't believe I'm publicly promoting Duke, but it's gonna be in the Duke Divinity School, which is right next to the bastardized architecture of Duke Chapel, and I think the hotel is the James Buchanan Duke. Um, so I'll take you to Chapel Hill if you want to see a real public university. Um, but you can see Mr. Dukes, the
So
best
it
tobacco
sounds like a
money can
wonderful
buy.
conference. And the beauty of it, besides the content and the individuals teaching, is that it is at no cost. So It's an opportunity to go to Duke's beautiful campus and even visit Carolina's beautiful campus, which are only
Very
15, 20 minutes away from each other.
yes.
And learn a little bit about, a really great approach to medicine that really allows the body to be healed in order to optimize, health and well-being. So um, I am delighted that you took the time to talk with us at AppLog today. We're proud you're a member. We're proud that you're listed as a member. So many of our members um, seek out life affirming doctors, particularly in college towns. And sometimes we don't, our members often are a little bit shy to get themselves on our practitioners, our list. So, you got any shout out you want to say to them to give them courage to publicly put themselves out there? Because patients sure are looking for life affirming physicians.
I mean, if that's the costliest thing you ever do, you need a life.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And a big
Exactly.
whoop. Yeah, and I will make a public offer to anybody who signs up via AppLog. I will buy them. I'll take them to the student store at Carolina and buy them a Carolina item
I
of
love
their
it.
choice dur- during the conference
Love it.
to make
Love
sure
it.
we represent
All
both
righty. Well,
sides.
Dr. Thorpe, thank you for being with us today, and hope that conference goes well.
We hope that you enjoyed today's episode of Observations and that it broadened your perspective on women's health and how we can care for both patients, mother, and preborn child. If you like this episode, make sure to give us a 5-star review where you can find your podcasts. Make sure that you like this on YouTube and subscribe to our channel for more episodes coming up. And if you have any suggestions on any topics that we should cover or guests that we should have on, make sure that you email us at media@applog.org. Again, thank you for joining us for today's observation, and we'll see you in our next episode.